It is. It's completely different from America. But I like it more like that.
Oh, gosh.
I was trying to see if it's
Like it
last
so
time,
much
and I can't remember if it's been there.
It's probably pretty close.
I guess. Well, how do you look?
Okay.
You should have.
Give it a little bit more time. Oh, wait till audit.
That's the week, so.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Oh,
Oh, I didn't see you then. I could have given it to you. I'm sorry.
Oh, this is.
Wasn't paying attention. In my own world.
Wyatt.
Well,
it was about 2 years ago, because it was when I got that replacement for Marge, and Marge has been gone. So it was about 2 years ago.
did it once more for people who needed it. I don't think I went to that one.
He could have, but the one that we did here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna leave that for everyone. You know, 1.7 or 1.4 or 7.2, 0.5, whatever.
She said one she's been on.
She did?
Somewhere in there, so then,
She wants more
yeah.
than
She's
four.
been out since.
About- Oh, no, she didn't. Sorry, I'm talking.
Oh, the
I'm thinking
auditor.
other- I'm talking
Yeah.
the auditor, yeah. No, Sherry didn't. She's been-
Oh, we need to figure out the pool bond too. We'll have to send that to her though, because that's our set schedule. What else do you have to say?
They wanted more in depth on that utility billing,
Okay.
because they said that the irrigation wouldn't matter.
Yes, it would.
And then something else, I looked at Rick earlier.
Well, feel free to shoot it my way. I'll be able to work on it tomorrow, but I can take a look at it.
Then we hear Wednesday.
I'm working on it.
24th.
Do I do one?
Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah, if you shoot it to me, I can take a deeper look at it on Wednesday.
If I don't, people are gonna hand me
It's
this
not-
thing.
right?
It's not that complicated. It's the federal grants that people.
Well, I told her that too. I'm like,
Rookie mistake.
You know, this, that.
Did she say anything about that?
Some of us just are considerate to others saying,
So, yeah.
Had to go.
don't put it out on their table meeting every week.
Had to go support local establishments before he came
So she's wanting more
Well,
reports.
she
More
wondered.
than one.
here. Oh, Mary.
It was just about the
But yeah.
utilities receivables, right? Was it all revenue or was it just receivables?
I think I've tried anything every time. I don't think I've had the same twice. That,
Nancy was perfect.
What?
You're a burrito nowadays.
Oh. I had enchiladas and sheriffs last week, that was good. A jalapeno margarita. You got. Certainly can.
We'll be open until 7 that night, this is the 19th. So that the Monday school starts. Monday week school
That's
starts.
Yeah, the
open
19th,
house.
Monday
Yeah,
the
that's open
19th.
house, so yes, we'll be open until 7 anyway, so. Okay.
And school picture is the 30th, not the 30th.
It's the 30th.
Yeah, 31st for some reason.
Well, did you hear that's great?
Yes, I
That's a good
did.
thing.
I did.
That's where.
I was really happy to see that.
Oh, you were?
Jeremy happened to
The
come
gym
last.
feels like a wrestling room because the AC is
That's
on.
what I heard.
Before my board meeting, and they
Yeah,
brought it up, and so I go to that.
So what are you getting?
They-
Yep.
Yeah, we are.
That's okay, I can feed everybody.
Yeah, we're serving in their cafeteria,
yes.
yes. Yes.
Live a little.
No, no. We usually serve more than them anyways, but.
Shoot me that email when you can, I'll take a look at it.
For some reason my phone shows me emails with her. I can see the first one that she sent, but not the second one, so.
An iPhone? Okay.
Those, you know,
It's
those
easy to
traffic
fix.
ones.
She's smart.
Exactly, thank you.
You're like the only one that shares up green when I text them.
Even all my staff have.
They're really?
I got an iPhone for work, that's it. I got regular Android
In fact, I think my board all has them too, except for one, so she's green. Cause yeah, when you text me, it was, you must have an iPhone.
Green's money.
No.
Yep.
Lose sanity? We have, was it Billy or Brittany?
Who's on the phone right now?
Brittany said she was gonna call me, right? Anybody on the phone?
I'm on the phone, that's Brittany.
Okay.
I couldn't recognize if it was you or Billy.
I don't know if that's a diss to Brittany or just.
In your defense, I was muted. I did not introduce myself.
Jeez.
I'll just bite my tongue, I think.
It's also not FaceTime.
I'll still try.
Right.
No win.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome, everyone. Do we have any additions or changes to the agenda? No? Is there a motion approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same
Aye.
sign. All right, motion carries. On to visitors to be heard. If there's any visitors to come up, please do. State your name, address. Seeing that there's none, we'll move on to the next item, to the consent agenda. So we'll look at a motion to approve the consent agenda. Before we do, are there any comments, questions, or concern from our council members that we'd like to bring up?
So it's good information on that being franchise tax.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fairly simple in how it's distributed. I'm not in love with the way it's distributed just because banks or communities without banks are still getting that revenue, just based on their percentage of assessed value and levies. But in terms of how state law is written, it's fairly clear in how it's supposed to be distributed. So.
Alan, that's great to see that we're getting a grant from Firehouse Subs. That'll be good for our community.
A couple of the notes on the consent agenda. Pre-annexation agreement, that's for the Icon plat that was approved last meeting. Should have had that on the consent agenda with the plat, but did not include that, so we'll have that on this one in a formal motion to approve. And then the library is submitting their grant application to the Lennox Area Community Fund.
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. This will be roll call. Swear,
Aye.
Vandrill,
Aye.
Mauer,
Aye.
and Bowers.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Consent agenda is approved. We do not have any old business for item 4, so on to new business, item 5, resolution 2024-701 maintenance fee. Nate?
Mayor and Council, the city has annually established this maintenance fee over the past, I believe it's 3 years. The fee is collected on all residential and commercial properties in Lennox, not school and not-for-profit properties, those two are exempt. The revenue is deposited into Fund 220, which is used exclusively for street maintenance projects. Up to this point, that's really only included slurry seal projects. In the future, it will also include mill and overlay projects and larger maintenance projects. For 2024, the council increased the fee to $1.50 per linear foot of frontage and forecasted a 50-cent per foot increase for 25 and 26, to eventually get the fee to the recommended amount of $2.50 per foot. This resolution is in keeping with that forecast. I recommend the motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution maintenance fee. All in favor, say aye.
Just a second,
Sorry.
quick question.
Aye.
Do we have a schedule of our future mill and overlay projects and like, where do we want to get the fund to? Do we have kind of a timeline of balance available?
We do not have a timeline of balance available or an identified first street. My guess is that the streets included in Central Basin 1, so we're talking 8th, 7th, Academy, Garfield, West 4th, that area. My guess is those are going to be the first. There are others that might be good candidates, like First, maybe Maine, Cherry, Center, that we think are built to a standard that will withstand a mill and overlay project. As you know, a lot of the projects or a lot of the asphalt streets that we have were not built with actual asphalt. They're just, you know, layer after layer of chip seal. You can't do that with that. Same thing with, you know, Oriole Avenue, which is only 3 inches thick in an industrial park. Once you mill off that top 1 inch or top 2 inches, there's really nothing left.
So so how much are we collecting at the current, or what is our linear footage collectible
Give me 1 minute, Greg.
roughly?
I believe we can get you that number.
The slurry seal, I'm just kind of trying to,
Slurry seal, we're doing about 125 a year. Next year, we're looking at probably 175. That's the 7th year that we've been doing these in the time I've been around, so we want to finish that up because every street we want a 7-year schedule.
yep.
And next year will probably be swimming pool, parking lot as well, those kinds of things. And that really should get us to the point where we're wrapped up and we can start over with South Main again next year. And I think we did 6 that first year. Brian wasn't here anyway, but trying to think of any other areas. Can't think of it. Right now, we're taking in, I believe, 180 to 190,000 a year in this fee.
That's $1.50 level.
$1.50. Yeah. If I remember right, it's about 60 to 65,000 feet of linear frontage in town.
Any other discussion or questions?
I know we stepped it up, but I think initially we wanted to, I think the recommendation was to go, I think to where we're gonna be next year maybe, and we decided to step it up instead of jumping back.
We included that step up in last year's resolution for the
We
first
feel
time.
at this point 250 covers our yearly slurry seal plus the planned mill room, and that's where we need to get to.
Yes, it definitely covers our annual slurry seal. Over time, it will also cover mill and overlay projects. I do believe that even after 2026, you need to make inflationary adjustments to that fee. But that was the fee that was recommended back in 2020, if I remember right, when we first did this. Might have been 21.
Any other questions, discussion? Sorry, I didn't ask for that before we voted, so seeing that there's none, we'll go ahead and vote again. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. And motion does carry for the resolution maintenance fee. On to B, new, the compensation study 2024.
Mayor and Council, this is an annual update to our compensation study that helps us ensure we're keeping pace with local market as far as wages are concerned. This year's study is slightly different from the previous versions. I mentioned before that I was growing a little concerned with the quality of data we were getting from the South Dakota Municipal League salary survey for a variety of reasons, but it's really become unreliable, and we needed to move away from that. So we've eliminated that as a data set for the analysis and instead relied on data from 5 nearby communities of similar size and operations. That's Beersford, Canton, Del Rapids. We include Harrisburg and T in that, and that's largely because of they're nearby, and in terms of how they operate, it's very similar to Lennox. They're larger communities, but very similar in how they operate. So this data set allows us to compare to local municipalities in a more accurate way than that larger data set would make possible. And it just keeps it a little more local. It does not include the city of Sioux Falls, which is probably our top competitor for talent. So that's something that's important to know. The same communities were used to provide analysis of my position, however, the full data is also available. And I would note that the full data set does bring the municipal average down a bit, so that's important to consider as well. I do have that data in the report, and I can always visualize that too if council wishes. In terms of impact, I think it's important to note several positions are outside of that 10% deviation that we're generally targeting. I do think we need to make some market adjustments to several positions in the upcoming budget. I don't know whether that's possible yet, given the second penny and sales tax constraints that we're expecting to see next year. But I think we should try and make that a priority in this upcoming budget to make sure that we're still keeping pace there. In terms of impact as well, I mean, this isn't policy, it's simply a study, so it's not you have to formally approve any compensation changes or anything, it's simply accepting the results of the study. That would be my motion, my recommended motion.
Do we have any more, do we have the ability to dive a little deeper and understand these 5 communities? Like, what are the same differences and the same, like, how many, like, let's just throw Kyle out there for instance. The people that compare to Kyle, how many employees do they have? Like, how much responsibilities does he have? Not just like a job title versus job title, but really trying to understand, like, is it the same, and how do we be as fair as we can with our people?
Yeah, let's look at, Brian's the first one in here. I think that's a good example of what you're talking about here. Where I've got in there, Beersford and T, those compare really well to Brian's position. They have a street superintendent or supervisor type position. Canton, Del Rapids, and Harrisburg, in the same case like in Kyle's case, you'll notice the same thing there. The equivalent position is a public works director. And so you'll see very similar, the duties are very similar, especially with Brian's. The compensation is more similar with Kyle's. Those individuals are likely going to be, I don't know if in those positions if they're license holders or not for those municipalities, but in some cases they are, but not everyone. So there's not a whole, can we look at it? Yeah, we absolutely can. It's never going to be a perfect comparison though.
You would have that same situation though, even if you were looking at the municipality league, right? I mean, the data from that, you wouldn't have direct comparisons.
Correct.
With the job descriptions.
Yep. And that's been a concern of ours in a number of areas before. I'd say probably most in those 2 positions, sometimes in the finance officer position, because sometimes the finance officer is there 2 days a week for 10 hours, and they're just collecting utility bills and that's it. In other cases, it's a full-time position similar to ours. Streets and water and sewer are very similar. Although these communities are going to have far more than just one person running water and sewer. City administrators, we talked about that position in the past, where some communities have transitioned their finance officer into a finance officer and city administrator, which is very different than how we do it. So there's no great comparison anytime. In some cases, there's almost no comparison. If you look at Allen's, for example, I know Ms. Mauer had mentioned this earlier to me. There's only a DOL classification that is somewhat close. There's no comparison. And in terms of cities that are operating ambulances, there's very few that we can compare to. Some of them are districts, which oversee huge areas out west, which is not the same. Some of them are part-time, it's just different.
Can we pull the job descriptions from these municipalities just to dig into it a little bit further and kind of get a feel for what their expectations are for?
I guess, is this something that during the finance committees, we can have deeper conversations, or what's the forum for talking through some of these?
In terms of, are you asking in terms of budget or just overall impact?
I mean, both, we gotta understand what we have available, and then we need to try to see who and where we need to make adjustments.
That makes sense.
I will add though that even though I wasn't part of this process in the past, I think this approach seems better just because, to your point earlier, that's the competition that we have for our talent, so it is important that the immediate areas we're looking at, and so dig into it deeper for sure is a good idea.
And that we're comparing apples to apples
Right.
with these two. Cause I mean, and forgive me if I'm saying this wrong too, but I mean, like I'm thinking of our police and EMTs, they're serving more than just the Lennox community too. So they're, you know, in some of these towns or maybe just in the cities, I'm not sure, you know, but it's just be interesting to know, like everyone was saying here, just to dig in a little bit deeper, understand.
Not that we're gonna get 100% accuracy on it, but at least we got something to
Yeah.
look at.
I think the challenge is if you know, what we're looking at here is meant to be a more, you know, database.
Well, yeah, I mean, this
objective
isn't the only data we're considering. I mean,
Right.
we need to, this is one piece of, we gotta look
Right.
at the whole picture
Yeah.
of what our team does and how are they compensated versus how we feel they should be compensated. So.
Right.
Just to kind of piggyback off what Mayor Bergen said, with Alan's position in particular, is there a comparable position in Canton that you could collect
There
data
is,
on?
but it's funded by Sanford, so it's not publicly available.
Okay. Good to know.
So if you would prefer, we could bring this back up on the August 12th city council meeting.
I mean, I don't know, I guess I'm okay with approving the
Yeah,
study.
yeah.
I mean, we're not approving
Anything
compensation changes at this point, we're just accepting, yeah, this is
Good
some
data.
data for us to use in that
Okay.
evaluation.
So just additional information, make that available.
I think so.
Okay, I can easily get a message out to all.
Even
5
send it to us
meetings.
ahead of time so we can ponder, look at it.
Can do.
Do we want to make a motion then to approve the compensation study?
Motion to approve study.
Motion and a second. Any other further discussion? Seeing that there's none, all in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Alright, motion does carry. On to C, Dakota mainstream discussion.
Mayor and council, we've been working with our partners at Lewis and Clark Regional Water System with regard to our long-term water needs. I think tonight is a good time to have a further discussion on some of that. So you'll recall that we joined with, I believe, every other Lewis and Clark community in participating in that expansion to 60 million gallons a day. That's underway already. This will provide Lennox with approximately 650,000 gallons of water per day, another 210,000 gallons over what we have now. Beyond that, the region has begun looking far into the future to ensure our long-term needs. And when I say far in the future, 40 years, give or take. And what we're calling that on the Lewis and Clark site is Lewis and Clark Regional Water System second expansion. For our local purposes here, our best estimate is that we'll need 1.6 million gallons a day in 2070. That is a guess, it's an educated guess, but it's a guess. We don't know what's 40 years out. We don't even know what's 10 years out. If you look at how quickly T and Harrisburg developed, both of those reserve the same amount from Lewis and Clark as Lennox did. Even in the wettest year that we have on record, Harrisburg is putting in place watering restrictions today. That tells us, you know, how in demand this is going to become for the region, and why this is an important discussion to have now and not later on. So I've included in your packet a PowerPoint presentation from Troy Larson, our Executive Director at Lewis and Clark, regarding that next expansion for the region. There's a lot in there. I think the key points are that those opportunities for expansion include a second expansion of Lewis and Clark or Dakota Main Stem as our options. Drilling our own wells again is an option, but not a great one. We'd have to build a treatment plant, we'd have to operate that, we'd have to staff up for it. In terms of ease of operation, that's the least favorite option, I should say. Dakota Main Stem is in an exploratory phase right now with 7 of the Lewis and Clark members joining. T and Harrisburg have now applied, in addition to Lincoln County Rural Water, Madison, Minnehaha Community Water System, Sioux Falls, and South Lincoln Rural Water. The best option is really going to be determined by timing, authorization, and cost. In terms of timing, we assume that Dakota Main Stem is going to take longer to get going than a new Lewis and Clark expansion, the second expansion. In terms of congressional authorization, that's never easy. It took us a long time at Lewis and Clark to get that going, but we've already been through it at Lewis and Clark as well. So we're thinking that would likely be an amended authorization versus a brand new congressional authorization for Dakota Main Stem. I think it's worth noting though that I don't think Dakota Main Stem is impossible in terms of authorization, but it's far more likely if it includes Iowa and Minnesota in that group. The more impact this has with other states, the better off we are. There's power in numbers. If we've got just South Dakota's congressional delegation standing up the flag, being the flag bearers for this new system, that doesn't have near the power that having Iowa, South Dakota, and Minnesota all together would make up on Capitol Hill. And that's part of why I think that Lewis and Clark's amended congressional authorization is more likely. And then cost. That's the big question. We don't know which one of these is going to be the best option for us in terms of cost. Both of them are looking at initial needs right now, and that'll tell us a little bit more about what the cost is going to be. I did talk with Dakota Main Stem again today. They know that September 1st is the deadline for application, because they really need to get the ball rolling on getting those costs put together. In terms of a second possible expansion for Lewis and Clark, Banner is working on a future needs study and feasibility study is that next step. Dakota Main Stem is organized and have a part-time executive director, and that's Kurt Fleifley. Kurt was most recently at South Dakota Rural Water and retired this spring. Hope to see him tomorrow. They're still in exploratory phase, and I'm asking that we consider applying to join. We don't know at this point what option is going to be our best. What we do know that we're going to need more water by 2070. And the more input, the better. The more input we have into the new system, the better represented our taxpayers are going to be an either option. So it's really not a question of water capacity right now. This is a question of water capacity for our kids and grandkids. Right now, there are no fees for joining Dakota Main Stem. That hasn't been established yet. But we know that members will be expected to contribute to that feasibility study. The estimate that we received was that it would be under $4,000 per year. I did review the Dakota Main Stem bylaws. I see no special considerations that need to be considered at this time. But please note that should the system become a reality, we'll be responsible for our share of the operating costs until it's operational. Again, those are unknown costs. If we decide that that's not our best option and that Lewis and Clark's second expansion is our best option, then that's the route we go. If our membership application is approved, you'll be expected to appoint a representative to the board of directors via resolution once your membership is approved. So I recommend a motion to submit membership application to Dakota Main Stem.
So just try to translate what you said and make it, make sure I understood. So right now we're just joining Dakota Main Stem. Right now it costs us $0, and in the short term it's gonna not exceed 4,000.
Yeah, I think next year, it's possible we'll have to pay this year, but I think it'll be next year.
But basically it's we're getting on their list for consideration, and then once they get more information, we'll have better data to decide, do we want to really invest a lot of money into going with them, or do we want to continue to go with the second?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And I mean, in terms of options, we need options.
Yeah,
We can't,
So we're
I
just-
don't think we wanna put all of our eggs in one basket, and then 10 years down the road realize that the Lewis and Clark second expansion isn't gonna happen, and they're gonna go to Dakota Mainstem because it serves a larger area. We don't wanna be in that position.
Yeah,
You know, there are folks, who 33 years ago, initially joined on to Lewis and Clark and left because they thought, you know, this probably isn't our best option. A lot of them are regretting that decision because it really turned out to be the best option that they could have had at the time. And now they're paying, a lot more money.
what is our current, I guess, are we married to Lewis and Clark forever for the amount we have right now? Or what if Dakota Mainstem comes in and it's a way better deal and they can provide us everything we need?
I have to look at the amended agreement. I believe there are provisions for leaving the system, but I don't know what those are.
I mean, I think it's better to have redundancy either way.
I agree. I mean, that's another, you know, where do we, let's say we go to Mainstem and we're already a member of Lewis and Clark, we now got 2 mains feeding in.
Yep.
Do they both feed into the Lewis and Clark
Pipes.
house at the water tower? Does one feed into the south water tower now?
Maybe that's the reason why we have two.
Yeah, I mean, it does offer some interesting options in terms of redundancy, should we lose, you know, I can't imagine the possibility that we'd lose a 54-inch pipe from Vermillion, but were that to happen, we've got another option.
Do they have any kind of timing of when they hope to be operational?
No, not at this point. You know, it
I mean,
took,
is it 10
well,
years?
again, we
20
had,
years?
Lewis and Clark was formed in 1990. And on Friday, we're putting the final piece of pipe in the ground over by Sibley, 33 years later. So I imagine most of us will be gone from our positions here. Well, maybe not Kyle. Will's shaking his head no. Will says he's never leaving.
His heels are dug in.
We'll have to cart him out. Alan will still be here carting him out, I suppose. But by the time this becomes a reality, I mean, we will be long gone from these positions, I believe, so.
Motion to approve membership application to Dakota Mainstem.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And motion does carry. All right, on to the next item. Main Street real estate purchase.
Mayor and council, this is a new Main Street real estate purchase. 609 South Main Street has approached us to ascertain our level of interest in purchasing that property. This is the house that's just east of the swimming pool. Late last week, I received a message from the owner expressing an interest in selling the home and land and asking if we would be interested. I explained that we would be interested and advised I'd be speaking with council tonight about doing so. I have contacted a realtor who's familiar with the property and did a quick market analysis for us. They put the value somewhere in the range of $275,000 to $290,000. The house is really of limited use to us, and we did discuss in the past, you know, if that were to come into our hands, moving the house off the property if it were acquired, whether that's at auction or whatever it might be. Auction would make that a lot more, it would make it a bit simple on our end, just because there are appraisal and other requirements that we have to go through in surplus laws to go through. And if we just auction it, you know, advertise an auction, you don't have to worry about a whole lot more. Unfortunately, it's a bit too wide to place on our lot on South Garfield by about 3 feet, so not a great option there in terms of setback requirements. For financing, we would typically look towards second penny for this. Current fund balance is just under $1.5 million. About 150 of that's been earmarked for the Meadows Drainage Repair Project. Probably use another 300 to 500,000 for that oil repair project we talked about a few weeks ago. That'd be in 25 or 26. So there is money available for this. You know, obviously, auctioning the house and getting it off there quickly would probably help us out a little bit in maintaining that fund balance. Because again, the second penny fund balance, we'd like to rely on more and more, of course, for capital improvements. And so when we're using it for these, I would consider this a capital improvement because we're acquiring land, and land that would be very valuable to us in terms of future park space. But again, it's pulling it out of that fund, which makes it a bit more challenging down the road. So if you're interested, I'd like to continue that conversation. We have not talked numbers at all at this point.
I think we'll get some numbers, what are they
Yeah.
thinking?
You're just looking for a consensus?
Go ahead and proceed or not.
Yeah.
I think it's worth pursuing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Nate, I thank you for the research that you did on this. One of the questions I had is if we could delay potentially at least until we know the outcome of IM 28. I mean, I'm fine with doing the research now and getting more information, but until we know about taxes for next year,
Yeah.
before we
You could certainly
actually
do
move forward with a large purchase.
you could certainly do a delayed closing. That would
What
be.
was that?
We could certainly do a delayed closing. That would be after the November election. That would at least tell us whether the measure passed or not. We're still gonna have to wait on the legislature or the Attorney General to issue an opinion on whether that applies to us or not. I still firmly believe it does, but, it's possible the legislature fixes this in January as well, so.
It'd also be nice if we
Sure.
could do a little research of what we think we could give for the house in auction, so like, what are we actually gonna be out for the land?
Yep.
That's really what we want. So does that bring that 275 down to 200 or 150, or what is it?
Bear with me a moment here, I'll see, I think I have something on that. No, this is the full, that was the full price, it didn't break down land. Now, if you look at land, it's about 0.4 acres, right now that's running about 50,000 in countryside. 45 to 50, so. Of course, the house would have to be moved, and that's, 5 years ago, that was
What year's the
50,000,
house?
not what it is now.
What year's now?
I gotta pull-
I'm guessing 70s, don't you?
That's us.
That's my guess.
Mid to late seventies.
You got JS up there, Chad?
Yeah,
Way at the bottom.
way at the bottom. 1965 question mark.
Yep. That question mark means we probably didn't submit our building permits to the county, or there was no building permit. That's what they base those off of, so. But that would give us that whole stretch east of the pool, so.
That would be nice.
So it's assessed at like 245,
What's land at? 48,
48.
yeah. And the house at 195, so maybe 150 for the house being moved. Schoolhouse sold at auction for 115. That's 1,000 or so square feet, I think. That's gotta be moved, of course.
How many square foot is this one?
This one's got 1360 on the main, 650 finished on the lower level. 3-bed, 2-bath.
We won't be moving the lower level.
Well, I mean, you could
People can try.
give it a shot, man. It's the first time for everything.
And this is the house that's kind of encroaching on the other land we're looking
It
at
is,
too, so.
We've ordered the survey, we assume it's encroaching, but it'll be several weeks before we get the survey done, so.
Do we need to make a formal motion for this?
I think just a consensus that there's enough interest in moving forward.
Yeah, let's get
Yeah,
some
I
more
think so.
data.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Then there is no personnel executive session, so look for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. And we are adjourned.